The stars above Tharox shimmered like scattered diamonds, distant and indifferent to the petty divides of species and power. On this gleaming planet, built from obsidian towers and platinum spires, the Galactic Gala of the high castes was set to begin. No humans were ever invited. Until now. Imani Carter stood on the edge of the hangar bay, her eyes scanning the expanse of unfamiliar technology and alien chatter. Once a renowned engineer in the Terran core colonies, she now scrubbed floors in silence aboard the starliner Veracis, owned by none other than Varkal Thun, CEO of Thun Interstellar and a member of the reptilian elite of Tharox. He towered above her kind, quite literally, 7 feet of shimmering green scales, piercing yellow eyes, and a mouth that twisted in perpetual disdain. To him, humans were amusing at best, expendable at worst. But today, he did something strange. "You," he hissed, pointing a clawed finger at her without looking up from his data scroll. "You'll accompany me to the gala tonight. As my domestic." Imani blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "Excuse me? You are human. That alone should provoke enough outrage to make the evening entertaining. You'll wear something appropriate. My assistants will prepare you." There was no request, only command, and though her pride burned, Imani clenched her jaw. She needed this chance. Not for the spectacle, but for something far more important. "Understood," she replied flatly. As she walked away, the other human workers stared at her with wide eyes, some with pity, others with hope. None of them had ever set foot inside a caste gala, let alone walked in beside one of the galaxy's most powerful beings. Back in her small quarters, Imani stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her dark skin glowed under the flickering neon light. She ran a hand over her hair, neatly coiled into protective twists, and whispered, "They want a maid. I'll give them something they'll never forget." If you're enjoying where this story is headed, don't forget to subscribe for more. You won't want to miss what happens next. Far above, the gala dome gleamed like a halo. The richest, most corrupt elites from 100 systems would gather tonight in silken robes and gold-plated intentions. Imani wouldn't walk in as a servant. No, not really. She had a plan, and Varkal Thun had no idea what kind of fire he had just invited into his perfect world. Imani stood outside the guest chamber, assigned to her for the evening, the sterile air humming with artificial coolness. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the sleek access card Varkal's assistant had handed her, black with gold filigree, embossed with the Thun crest. It was real. This was happening. A knock echoed behind her, sharp and quick. She turned as Alex, one of the few other human staff on the Veracis, approached with cautious steps. His dreadlocks were tied back tightly, and his maintenance suit was streaked with lubricant from hours in the engine core. "You serious about going to this thing?" he asked, voice low. "I am," Imani replied, pocketing the card. "He's using me as a prop. I plan on using the stage." Alex's eyebrows lifted. "That why you asked me for those old code breakers last week?" She nodded. "I'm not just walking in there to serve drinks." He glanced around and stepped closer. "I got something for you. Old engineering friends of yours, Keisha, Dre, Malik, they all heard. Said you'd come calling. They sent something through the courier last cycle." Imani's pulse quickened. "Where is it?" "Stashed in storage bay 12, under the crate labeled Hydra Core filters. It's locked, though. You'll need to hack it." "I'll manage," she said. Alex hesitated, then rested a hand on her shoulder. "You sure this is worth it, Imani? That gala's not just rich folks showing off. That's power incarnate. If they catch you messing with anything—" "They won't," she interrupted. Her eyes sharpened. "This isn't about revenge, it's about truth, about dignity. They've turned us into ghosts on our own colonies. Time somebody reminded them we still bleed, still build, still fight." A silent beat passed between them. Then Alex gave a short nod. "Watch your back," he muttered before walking off. Later, in her temporary room, Imani unpacked her own gear, what little she still owned. Old tech tools, a hidden data spike, and a holographic interface worn from years of use. She ran her fingers along the edge of the holo display, remembering the last time she'd used it, before the tribunal stripped her of her engineer status, claiming incompatibility with interspecies workplace ethics. She hadn't broken any laws. She'd just spoken up when a Tharox officer called her sub-intellectual. That was enough to erase her career. Not tonight. She opened a secure channel to Keisha through an encrypted relay. The familiar voice clicked on. "You ready to make noise, sis?" Keisha asked with a grin in her tone. Imani smiled. "Almost. Tell Dre and Malik it's on. You got this. And hey, make sure you look fly. If they're gonna underestimate you, might as well blind 'em first." The line cut, and Imani leaned back, letting the quiet settle. She knew what she was walking into. She'd be surrounded by beings who viewed humans as utility, not equals. But she wouldn't cower. Not anymore. Outside her window, the twin moons of Tharox aligned, bathing the skyline in silvery light. The Gala was hours away. Her message was clear. They wanted her present. She'd make sure they never forgot her. Imani stood before the mirror, the synthetic lights above casting a warm glow over the polished chrome walls. She reached into the sealed case Alex had helped her unlock. Inside, carefully folded, was the dress. It wasn't just clothing. It was a statement. Handmade by Keisha in the underground networks of the Terran fringe colonies, the dress fused African futurism with engineered precision. Midnight black fibers shimmered with subtle nanotech, reactive threads that shifted hue with movement. Golden patterns etched in Yoruba script flowed like circuitry across the sleeves and hem, glowing faintly with embedded microlights. She slipped it on with reverence. The fabric hugged her form with strength, not fragility. Across the shoulders, a structured capelet bore symbols of unity, adinkra glyphs woven with conductive filaments. Every detail whispered resistance, identity, and memory. This was not a uniform. This was armor. Imani activated the embedded HUD bracelet stitched into the sleeve. A soft hum filled the room as the system synced with her neural implant, outdated but still intact. The interface flickered into life, displaying vitals, audio channels, and an encrypted backdoor to the Verasi's mainframe. "Still got it," she muttered. Her heart pounded. The weight of history pressed on her chest, not just hers, but of generations before her. Ancestors who'd fought to build a life from the ruins of oppression. She wasn't carrying this for show. She was carrying it for them. The door chimed. She turned. Standing there was Varkal Thun, his expression unreadable behind slitted yellow eyes. He scanned her from head to toe, nostrils flaring. "I expected synthetic formal wear, not this," he said with a sharp flick of his tongue. Imani met his gaze. "You said to wear something appropriate." He stared for a long moment, then chuckled, a low, vibrating sound that rippled through the air. "You have no idea the reaction this will provoke," he said. "The high castes aren't known for their open minds." "Good," she replied simply. His gaze lingered. "You're not what I expected from a Terran laborer. I'm not what you expected, period." A slow, amused smirk curled his scaled lips. "Touché." As they moved through the corridors of the Verasis, heads turned, alien aides, guards, and junior executives pausing mid-task to glimpse the human woman at the CEO's side. She walked tall, chin high, every step deliberate, not defiant, commanding. The launch pad shimmered with anti-grav lifts as Varkal's private transport powered up. He gestured for her to board first. Inside the vessel, silence stretched between them until Varkal finally spoke. "You wear your history like a weapon. I wear it because they wanted me to forget it." He tilted his head. "And what do you plan to do when the knives come out?" Imani didn't hesitate. "Remind them that we've been bleeding longer than they've been living." The ship lifted, the stars streaking past the curved windows. Ahead, the Gala Tower hovered like a crystal spear above Tharox Prime, an edifice of wealth, corruption, and tradition. But tonight, something new was coming through those doors, something they hadn't calculated. Imani Carter wasn't going to be their entertainment. She was going to be the storm. The transport descended through the iridescent clouds of Tharox Prime, weaving between skyborne palaces and floating fortresses. The Gala Dome loomed ahead, an impossible structure of glass, gold-veined stone, and pulsing bioluminescence. The spires sang with alien energy, a visual hymn to the wealth and arrogance of the high castes. Imani stood still as the vessel docked, her breath even, though her chest burned. She could already feel their eyes, even before the doors opened. A pair of Gala sentries greeted them, tall insectoid creatures in shimmering black armor. Their antennae twitched as they scanned Varkal's credentials, then their gaze slid to Imani. One of them made a clicking sound. "You brought a human as a guest." Varkal didn't even look at him. "As my domestic. She's registered and dressed accordingly. Issue?" The sentry hesitated, then stepped aside. "None." Imani stepped forward without flinching, her heels tapping sharply on the crystalline floor. The cool air inside the dome carried the scent of imported blossoms and polished metals. 100 different languages swirled in the air, but when she entered, everything went quiet. Every being in the chamber turned, eyes, antennae, tendrils, lenses. She was the only human in sight, and not in chains. A long table stretched across the center of the hall, laden with delicacies from 6 galaxies. Light-bending pillars framed the domed ceiling, which displayed a shifting star map above. Nobles in flowing robes and engineered skin suits stood in cliques, holding crystal goblets and speaking in hushed tones. She heard them, every whisper. "Is that a Terran? Why is she disgraceful? She's quite striking. She must be a pet." Imani didn't flinch. She walked beside Varkal like she belonged there, chin high, steps precise. Her dress flowed behind her like liquid shadow, catching the light in bursts of gold script and subtle fire. From the corner of her eye she saw a woman, blue-skinned, three-eyed, adorned in translucent silks, narrow her gaze and whisper to her companion, a serpent-bodied merchant. They both laughed. "Careful," Imani said quietly to Varkal. "Your friends are choking on their champagne." He smirked. "That's the point. Don't think this means I'm flattered. I wouldn't dare." The crowd parted as they approached the Grand Hall's central dais. Varkal exchanged formal greetings with other elites, speaking their dialects fluently. Imani stood at his side, silent, watching, calculating. A server bot hovered near her, offering a glass of amber liquid. She accepted it without hesitation, holding it like she'd been doing this her whole life. She didn't sip, just watched. Watched how they looked at her, some curious, others disgusted. One or two, intrigued. That's right. Let them look. Let them wonder how a human had entered their sanctum dressed like royalty and moving like thunder. Varkal leaned toward her. "Your presence is causing quite the tremor. That's just the beginning." Above them, the announcement sphere pulsed, signaling the start of formal proceedings. A voice echoed through the hall. "Esteemed members of the High Caste, welcome to the 94th Convergence Gala." Imani's pulse slowed. She was in, and they were already cracking. Imani stood near the edge of the central dais, her eyes trailing the arches above where starlight danced through crystalline filters. Every glance in her direction still carried that quiet weight, judgment wrapped in condescension. She welcomed it. The ceremony had shifted into the networking phase, as it always did. Nobles forming clusters, power brokers whispering in codes, ambassadors laughing in 12-tone laughter. And that's when he approached. Ambassador Jorthax of the Zalari conglomerate, an elder creature with skin like molten ivory and lips that curled without humor. His robes shimmered with veins of living silver. He held a glass of blue vapor and stepped deliberately into Imani's space. "A remarkable display," he said, voice smooth like oil. "How clever of Varkal to dress you so theatrically." Imani's eyes stayed steady. The dress wasn't his choice. Even more clever, then, letting the pet decorate its own leash. Varkal turned slightly, raising an eyebrow, but made no move to intervene. Imani tilted her head. "Funny thing about leashes, they were invented by species afraid of being outrun." A quiet ripple spread around them. Several guests nearby had gone still. One of them choked softly on a fizzy liquid. Jorthax's smile faltered. "Ah," he said with mock amusement. Terran wit, primitive but persistent. Imani took a slow step toward him. You know what else is persistent, Ambassador? Memory. My people have long memories. We remember what it means to be stripped of name, voice, and place. We remember how empire smells, sweet at first, then bitter with rot. Yorthax scoffed, looking to Varkal. You've trained her well. She's not trained, Varkal said, tone flat. She's here because I invited her. And you might do well to treat guests with minimal dignity. It was not a defense, but it was a warning. Yorthax's eyes narrowed. Careful, Varkal. A human who speaks like that might start believing her words matter. Imani smiled. They already do. You just haven't caught up yet. More silence. Then someone, an elegant, shell-clad dignitary from the Safari Union, clapped once. Loud, deliberate. Others followed, uncertain but curious. A strange applause rose, hesitant, not celebratory but undeniable. Yorthax's jaw tensed. Without another word, he turned and slithered back toward his cohort, muttering something in his native dialect. Varkal leaned close to Imani, voice low. Well played. I'm not playing. He looked at her, really looked. For the first time, the amusement in his eyes clouded with something else. Interest. Wariness. The lights above dimmed for a moment, signaling the shift to formal exhibitions. Music began to play, an orchestral blend of sonic frequencies and light pulses. The crowd turned toward the center of the dome. Imani remained still, breath calm. She had drawn blood, not with weapons, not with power, with presence, and there was more to come. Imani slipped quietly away from the main circle as the lights dimmed further for the scheduled exhibition. Beams of focused brilliance descended on the gala floor, where an AI projection was beginning to unfold, an elaborate demonstration of neural synchronization between Federation minds and quantum computational systems. They called it unity of mind. It was the jewel of the Federation's technological supremacy. To Imani, it was propaganda. She stood near one of the crystal lattice columns, her HUD bracelet blinking softly beneath her sleeve. She tapped it twice, the interface blooming in the corner of her vision. The hidden uplink began to hum. Keisha's voice came through the encrypted audio feed. Patch is live. You ready, sis? Now or never. Imani reached under her capelet and removed a small data spike disguised as a decorative brooch. She slipped it into a barely visible seam near the base of the projection column. The spike pulsed green. Upload started, Keisha confirmed. The exhibition unfolded in a dazzling swirl of synchronized visuals, thousands of holograms connecting to show the reach of the Federation's influence. Planets bowed, systems prospered, harmony, peace, unity, all lies. The data spike did its work, pulling truth to the surface. The projection flickered, just for a second, then again. Gasps rose. Suddenly, the entire holographic display shifted, no longer a curated illusion of prosperity, but a brutal data cascade, footage of human colonies stripped bare for resources, whistleblower testimonies, silenced reports, children working in underground tech mines, medical experiments on detained civilians. The room erupted in chaos. Who's doing this? This is unauthorized. Shut it down, now. But the spike had done more than inject. It had looped and locked. The system couldn't eject the content without rebooting the entire exhibition grid. A chorus of brutal truths played across the Gala dome. Human labor has accounted for 64% of the Federation's expansion infrastructure since the first expansion. Over 27% of those laborers have died in undocumented off-world incidents. Imani didn't move. Her heart pounded, but her face was stone. All around her, elites panicked, shouted, denied. Some accused each other. Others scrambled for control panels. Varkal watched from the side, his expression unreadable, arms crossed. Then his gaze locked with hers. He walked toward her slowly as the lights trembled with protest. You did this, he said quietly. Imani met his eyes. I revealed this. You risked everything. Do you understand what you've started? She held his stare. Maybe the question is, What are you going to do now that it's started? For a moment he didn't respond. Then, incredibly, Varkal turned toward the projection and began to speak in his native tongue, loud, firm, commanding silence from those around him. The noise dimmed. "I did not authorize this," he told the room, "but I will not silence it. If there are truths in these images, we must face them." Gasps, outrage, stunned silence. Imani stepped forward beside him. "Your unity isn't real if it's built on the backs of those you erase." Nobody moved. Nobody argued. The truth echoed too loud. But it wasn't over. Imani knew this was just the first crack, and something far bigger was coming. After the hijacked projection faded and the dome light stabilized, the Gala stood suspended in a fragile hush, like a room where glass had just shattered, but no one dared move. The elegant arrogance of the evening had curdled into unease. Varkal Thun remained still, his scaled hands clasped behind his back, as if he were merely observing a business negotiation unfold. Yet his pupils were narrow, his breathing sharper. Imani stood close by, her expression unreadable. She knew what had just happened wasn't the end. It was a lit match in a silo of dry power. He leaned toward her slightly. "Was your goal to make me a target tonight, or simply to see who would flinch first?" "I didn't come to play safe," she replied, her voice low and clear. "But if I wanted to make you a target, you'd already be bleeding." A glint of something, respect perhaps, flickered in his yellow eyes. He motioned for her to follow, and together they moved toward a more private alcove at the edge of the hall, away from the ambient stares and muffled whispers. The corridor curved like a spine, polished stone pulsing with faint bioluminescence. "Tell me something," he began. "How much do you really know about what my corporation does? Enough to know your supply routes run through illegally occupied Terran zones, enough to know you negotiated shadow treaties with governors who sell their own people for extra trade credits." Varkal didn't deny it. Instead, he exhaled slowly. "I never saw it as personal. Humans were a resource like any other. Efficient, ambitious, desperate. You work hard because history forced you to." "That's the problem," Imani said, stepping closer. "You never saw us. You saw what we could build, what we could extract, how much we could endure, but never who we are." Varkal's jaw flexed. For once he didn't have a smirk. "There was a time," he said slowly, "before I became CEO, when I visited Earth, the outskirts of Lagos. I was still learning how to negotiate, sent to close a trade deal. I met an engineer who fixed my shuttle's power matrix after one of my own failed to do it." Imani blinked. "Her name was Aisha Carter." Imani froze. "My mother." Varkal's eyes narrowed. "She knew what I was. And yet she spoke to me with fire in her voice, not out of fear, but principle. She told me the galaxy was built by hands that never got credit, and one day those hands would stop building." Imani stepped back, reeling. "You let her be erased," she hissed, "after what she gave." Varkal's voice dropped. "She was silenced, not by me, but I didn't stop it either. I buried the report." "I buried her." Silence stretched between them like a canyon. Then he added almost bitterly, "That's when I stopped seeing people. It was easier." "And now?" Imani asked. He looked toward the Gala hall, still trembling from the data shock. "Now I'm starting to see fire again." Their eyes locked. She didn't forgive him. But something shifted. For the first time, he wasn't wearing the mask of power. And she wasn't just a maid in a dress. They were two people, standing on the edge of a fracture, one that could split the stars apart. Imani paced the observation balcony, her fingers clenched around the railing. Below, the Gala continued in a fractured hum, guests milling in clusters, uncertain, off balance. The once seamless tide of power had been disrupted. The ripple was becoming a wave. Varkal joined her moments later, silent at first. His gaze tracked the stars stretching across the dome's transparent shell. The silence between them throbbed, thick with what hadn't been said. "You knew about my mother," Imani finally said. "All this time." He didn't look at her. "I knew what happened to her. I chose not to look deeper. It was easier to sign the reports than question them. Easier for you. His jaw tightened. Yes. Imani turned to face him, her voice sharp. You buried the story of a woman who saved your life because it didn't fit your quarterly projections. And now you want what, absolution? I want understanding, not forgiveness. That's yours to withhold. She studied him. For all his scales and arrogance, Varkal now looked like a man aware of his place in a machine too big to control. For the first time, she saw the cracks in his armor weren't just tactical, they were personal. You built your empire on systems that treat people like stats, she said. On colonized labor, falsified trade routes, silenced scientists. You fed the machine. I was the machine. And now? I'm wondering if it can be dismantled. Imani took a step closer. Her voice dropped. Then you'd better be ready to burn your name with it. He met her eyes. What if I am? She held his gaze, searching for the lie. She didn't find one, but truth she knew could be a trick of timing. Still, something in her shifted. She didn't trust him. But she was willing to use him. She pulled a thin hollow drive from her sleeve and handed it to him. What's this? Proof of where the buried bodies are, transaction logs, private comms, whistleblower reports from inside your own boardroom, a full dossier. He held the drive in his palm, staring down at it like it might explode. You had this prepared? I didn't come to this gala without options. I came prepared to force accountability. But if you're really ready to do more than posture, then we use this together, on your platforms. Varkal's fingers closed around the drive. Some of the people implicated on this, they're not just executives, they're council level. I know. Publishing this could start a civil fracture. It should. His gaze snapped back to hers. She didn't blink. The Federation doesn't get to keep pretending everything's fine, she continued, and neither do you. Either you're with me, or you get out of my way. A long pause. Then, I'm with you, he said. For now. They turned to look back out over the crowd. Something had changed, not just in them, but in the air itself. The gala was no longer a celebration. It was a warning. And Imani Carter had just made herself impossible to ignore. Imani moved through the gala hall with quiet intensity. The room hadn't fully recovered. The conversation no longer flowed with ease. Now, it stumbled and scattered like shards on the floor. Fear was in the air, but so was curiosity. She felt the shift before she saw it. A group of younger aliens stood clustered near the edge of the exhibition floor. 4 of them, all dressed in less traditional finery, clothing cut sharper, cleaner, with traces of Terran fashion embedded in their accessories. The youngest, a tall, feline-featured girl with golden eyes, approached first. I've been watching you, she said, her voice melodic but edged. You're Imani Carter. Imani raised an eyebrow. And you are? Carol Zai, daughter of Minister Voth Zai. I'm not here with him. I came to see what you'd do. Imani crossed her arms. And? Carol tilted her head. You made the silence bleed. Another stepped forward, a humanoid male with rust-red skin and an augmented voice box. The old order is rotting, he said. We've seen it. We've lived in it. Most of us were expected to carry it forward. But we're not going to, Carol added. Not anymore. Imani studied them. You realize aligning with me puts a target on your back. Good, Carol said, smiling. I'm tired of pretending the Emperor isn't naked. One of the others, a being with translucent skin that shimmered like water, stepped forward and extended a hand, a gesture that wasn't native to his species, but one he had clearly adopted from Terran customs. I've studied Earth history. Your people, your struggle, it's not unfamiliar. We've watched, quietly. Maybe too quietly. Imani took the hand. Then let's stop whispering, she said. Behind them, Varkal approached, visibly cautious. His eyes swept over the small crowd forming around her. I see you've started gathering disciples. They're not following me, Imani replied. They're standing beside me. Varkal's gaze lingered on Carol, who didn't flinch under his scrutiny. Young bloods, he said. You do realize the moment the council sees you taking her side. We're not taking her side, Carol interrupted. We're taking the side of truth. You should try it sometime. Varkel's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, not quite a snarl. Imani turned to the group. We're not building a movement just to get angry. We need direction, strategy, coordination. We've got encrypted networks, said the red-skinned one. Underground data hubs, quiet supporters in lower ministries. You'd be surprised who's ready to rise. I'm not here to burn things down without purpose, Imani said. We're going to expose what's been hidden, but we do it smart, surgical, public. Then we start with the Council's pending treaties, Carol said. Most of them are built on false labor projections. Imani nodded. Pull the data. Leak it through Varkel's press channels. If he's serious about standing with us, he'll make sure it goes viral. Varkel didn't argue. Imani looked around at the faces circling her now, young, defiant, sharp. She hadn't expected them, but the galaxy had been ready long before she stepped foot in this hall. It had only been waiting for someone to light the fuse. The gala was still in motion, but the tone had changed. Whispers now carried tension. Every noble step seemed lighter, more cautious. Eyes no longer swept over Imani. They lingered, some with awe, others with unease. She sat in a quiet alcove with Carol, the red-skinned drylith named Rav, and two others who had joined their cause. Varkel stood a short distance away, his arms crossed, watching everything unfold with the wary precision of a man caught between loyalty and legacy. Imani placed a thin data projector on the table, activating the small, secure holofield. Numbers, maps, and legislative schedules flickered to life. This is how we hit them, she said, not just with outrage, with timing. Carol leaned forward. You already mapped out the treaties? Every one pending review, Imani confirmed, including the 8 most critical to Federation resource flow. They're built on labor data from colonies that no longer exist, dead zones, places they've stripped and abandoned. Rav scowled. And the Council's still using those numbers to justify expansion quotas. Imani nodded. If we leak the discrepancies across every system in every native language, the illusion breaks. Their supply chains, economic models, political credibility, it all starts to crack. Carol tapped her fingers against the table. We have sympathizers in the Interplanetary Trade Council's infrastructure, low-level but loyal. If we feed the right leaks through their internal pipeline, it'll look like dissent from inside the machine. Perfect, Imani said. We make it look organic, uncontainable, like the truth is mutating. Rav added, We'll need a symbolic act too, something visible that forces them to address it. I've got something in mind, Imani said, eyes narrowing. She turned to Varkel. You still have full access to the corporate network? He nodded slowly. What are you asking for? I need your clearance to launch a Federation-wide broadcast, not under your name, under mine. Carol's eyes widened. You're going public? Imani's voice was firm. Yes, we've done enough behind the scenes. They need to see a face, a voice. A target they can't ignore or erase. Rav crossed his arms. That's dangerous. So was being born human, Imani said. Varkel hesitated. You're asking me to give you access to the same systems that could dismantle everything I've built. I'm not asking, she replied. I'm offering you a chance to be part of what comes next. He looked at the others, then at her, and handed over his access key. Make it count. Imani downloaded the authorization, then turned back to her allies. We time the leaks to hit during the next High Council summit. Their media filters will be overloaded trying to suppress the volume, and when they can't, they'll try to discredit the message. Carol smiled. And by then it'll be too late. Imani leaned back, a storm of calm beneath her skin. Everything was in motion now, and soon no one would be able to stop it. The leak hit faster than anyone expected. Within hours of the synchronized data drops, media hubs across 7 sectors lit up with stories, reports of falsified treaties, footage of ravaged Terran colonies, testimonies from whistleblowers, some thought disappeared years ago, suddenly public again. At first, the Federation's central broadcast towers stayed quiet, too quiet. Then came the statement. Imani watched it unfold from the interior of the transport hub outside the Gala dome. A projection shimmered to life in the sky. Chancellor Virel, head of the Galactic Federation, appeared against a sterile blue background. Her voice was cold. The recent dissemination of falsified and unauthorized content is an attack on Federation unity. We denounce these acts of sabotage which seek to destabilize the order that protects our galaxy's peace. Imani's jaw tightened. Her hands curled into fists. She's not even denying it, Carol said beside her. She's just shifting the blame. Rav frowned. Classic power move. If you can't control the narrative, criminalize the messengers. Imani stepped closer to the hollow feed as Virel continued. The individuals responsible for this breach will be identified and prosecuted under Intergalactic Security Act 9. Cooperation from private corporations will be expected and enforced. She just threatened you, Carol muttered to Varkle. He didn't flinch. Let her. The transmission ended. Imani turned slowly to the group around her. They've chosen denial. That makes our next move even more critical. One of the younger rebels, a sharp-eyed Sephiri, leaned forward. We still have momentum. The people are reacting. Even out in the Rim colonies, they're watching this unfold in real time. We need to keep it public, Imani said. No secret negotiations, no private meetings. If the Federation wants to fight the truth, we make sure the whole galaxy sees it. Carol crossed her arms. Then we push the next phase. Broadcast live testimony. Survivors. Voices they've tried to erase. Rav added, we can coordinate a digital rally, use multi-system relays to jam their broadcast lines with our signal. Do it, Imani said. And prepare a message from me. I'll address the galaxy myself. Varkle stepped forward, expression hardening. They'll come for you. The moment your face is attached to the movement, you become their scapegoat, their excuse for crackdowns. Imani looked him dead in the eye. Let them try. The silence that followed was thick with steel. Then Carol smiled. You're not just the voice of this rebellion. You're the fire starter. No, Imani said. I'm the reminder of what they built, of what they erased. She walked to the transport's edge, gazing out over Tharok's Prime. The planet no longer looked as perfect as it once had. Cracks had formed, shadows beneath the light. But in those shadows something had awakened, and it would not go quietly. Varkle Thun stood in the dim corridor just outside the rebel coordination chamber. The walls around him pulsed faintly with ambient light, but he wasn't looking at them. He was staring at the access key Imani had returned to him, its code signature flickering like a dying flame. He was quiet. For once, no sarcasm, no calculated remarks. Just a man in the echo of his own decisions. Behind him, he heard the soft approach of Carol's steps. You're stalling, she said. I'm calculating, he replied. Carol leaned against the opposite wall. There's no angle here that makes you look good, Varkle. You know that, right? I didn't come to look good, he said, voice low. I came to rule. And now? He sighed. Now I'm considering whether burning everything I built is the only way to live with it. She studied him for a moment, then pushed off the wall. She believes you'll make the right call. Don't prove her wrong. Varkle entered the chamber again. Imani was reviewing security feeds, her face illuminated by a projection of Federation troop movements, subtle escalations in major cities, coded as routine drills. They're preparing for lockdown, she said without looking up. They won't let the next message go through without resistance. Then we push harder, Rav said. Varkle stepped forward. No, we do it differently. Imani finally turned. I'm giving you something, he said. Something they won't see coming. He activated a private channel and transmitted a single file into the holotable, an encrypted stream labeled Black Star Protocol. Imani's brow furrowed. That's not in any Federation index. It wouldn't be, it's off-grid, private. A shadow failsafe built by the original corporate founders, something meant to protect their secrets. But it can be reversed, exposed. What kind of secrets? Carol asked. Everything, Varkle said. From the origin of the Terran indenture programs to the real financial beneficiaries of the expansion wars. Names, coordinates, unredacted. It'll implicate sitting council members, military commanders, maybe even Chancellor Virel herself. The room fell silent. Imani stepped closer. Why give this up now? Because you were right, he said. All of this, what I've become, it's built on bones, yours, your mother's, millions more. I don't want to salvage this system anymore. I want to destroy it before it destroys you. Imani didn't speak. Her chest rose and fell with slow, measured breaths. Then she nodded. Okay, we release it with the broadcast. I'll transmit it from my own grid, Varkal said. Not as a CEO, as a witness. Carol arched an eyebrow. You sure you're ready for the target that paints? Varkal met her gaze. No, he turned to Imani. But if I'm going to fall, I want to fall doing something that matters. Imani looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then slowly she offered her hand. He took it. No ceremony, no forgiveness, just the truth, shared, finally. And the storm they were about to unleash, the signal went out. The Black Star Protocol launched into the galaxy like a rupture in time, a flood of truth that drowned every security system too slow to respond. Screens blinked to life on every colonized world, capital cities, mining stations, forgotten outposts. The message was clear. The Federation had built its peace on exploitation, and now the evidence had names. Within minutes, panic rippled through the upper sectors. Systems scrambled to disconnect their comms, but it was too late. The fail-safes had failed. And then someone tried to kill Varkal Thun. It happened in a blink. One moment he stood beside Imani in the relay command room, eyes fixed on the data flood pulsing across the galaxy. The next, a high-pitched whine split the air. A shot. Imani reacted first. She tackled him hard, both of them crashing to the floor as the plasma round scorched past them, melting the console where he'd stood. Screams, alarms. Red lights bathed the room. Carol dove for cover, shouting orders. Rav had his weapon drawn before anyone else moved. Sniper! Sight came from above, third-level vent system. Imani rolled to her feet, grabbing a service drone panel and slamming it shut to cut off line of sight. Varkal groaned, clutching his side. His scales were scorched but intact, barely. You all right? She asked, eyes sharp. I've had worse, he rasped, but not by much. Carol was already tapping into the building's defense grid, locking down exits. The shot was clean, professional, council-grade mercenary maybe. This wasn't a warning. It was a message, Imani growled. They know he flipped. Rav helped Varkal to his feet. They'll try again. I'm aware, Varkal said, teeth clenched. Remind me never to try redemption again, it's hazardous. Imani turned to Carol. Lock down the servers. Get that protocol mirrored to every allied node. If they take us out, the data keeps moving. Already on it, she confirmed. Varkal leaned on the console, his breath ragged. You were right, Imani. They won't give up power, not until it's torn from their fingers. And we just started pulling, she replied. Another alert flashed across the interface. Federation fleet movements. Dozens of small patrol ships reassigning across major routes, tightening, preparing. They're not just reacting, Rav said. They're planning to seal entire systems. Let them, Imani said. Every lockdown exposes their fear. Every broadcast makes their silence louder. Carol looked to her. We're not turning back, are we? Imani shook her head. No. We just crossed the line. Varkal looked around at the people who had once called him a tyrant. Now they were shielding him, trusting him, however cautiously, with a future he once helped suppress. I can still give you access to one more thing, he said. Imani raised an eyebrow. What? A full list of council fleet deployments, hidden ones, the kind even most generals don't see. It might buy us time. She nodded. Do it. Their eyes met. There was no redemption song playing, no forgiveness handed out, just necessity, just survival, just revolution. And they were in it, together now, whether they lived through it or not. The first planetary blackout came less than 12 hours after the Black Star Protocol was released. Tharox's sky, once pulsing with orbital commerce and ceremonial flight trails, was quiet now. The Federation had pulled every non-essential vessel out of its airspace. Local networks had been jammed, civilian comms were restricted, Military formations moved in formation through major transit routes, but the silence didn't stop the signal. From abandoned domes on the Terran fringe to broadcast towers deep in Gerian space, the revolution Imani ignited refused to be silenced. Every time the Federation shut down a stream, 5 more sprang up in its place. The data was everywhere now. Truth had become a contagion. Imani stood at the heart of it, surrounded by the people she once doubted would ever follow her. Carol was running intercepts on blockade codes. Rav commanded a coordinated stream of off-grid relays. And Varkal, wounded, limping but unbroken, had become a weapon of his own creation. They were no longer a rogue faction. They were a movement, and the galaxy was watching. "Planetary resistance cells are syncing up," Carol said, her voice firm. "Even some Border Patrol captains are refusing Federation lockdown orders. They're asking for a unified directive." Imani didn't hesitate. "Then give them one. No aggression, no chaos. Strategic disruption only. This isn't about vengeance. It's about visibility." Rav looked up from his terminal. "There's chatter out of Virel's inner circle, rumors of fracture. Some council members are demanding an emergency review of executive power." "They're turning on each other," Carol muttered. "They're afraid," Imani said. "That's what the truth does." Suddenly, an alert flashed across the hologrid. Mass transmissions coming from the Terran core. But it wasn't the Federation, it was the people, dockworkers, teachers, engineers, artists. Colonists from across human space, standing in front of their local transmitters, giving testimony. Raw, unfiltered. Voices that had been ignored now became the anthem of something greater. "They're showing up," Rav whispered. "No," Imani said softly. "They've always been here. They just never had the mic." Varkal entered the room leaning on a cane forged from his personal insignia, a symbol he now carried like a burden. "I've initiated a secure transmission to the council chambers," he said. "They'll either take your message or shut the feed down live." "They won't shut it down," Imani replied. "Not now, not with the galaxy watching." Carol glanced around. "This is it then?" Imani nodded. "This is where the revolution stops being ours." "And becomes theirs," Varkal finished. They activated the stream together, not with flags or anthems, not with threats or bombs, but with a voice, one voice, speaking for millions. And in every corner of the stars someone was listening. The galaxy was quiet. Not with the silence of suppression, but the pause that comes when truth finally lands. The broadcast had gone out uninterrupted. Imani's voice, steady and clear, echoed through the systems like a promise long overdue. She didn't beg. She didn't plead. She told the truth. About the lives lost, the histories erased, the futures stolen. She named names, recited dates, laid out facts so clean they cut through every lie the Federation had built. And the galaxy, shocked, stirred, divided, listened. In the days that followed, things didn't change overnight. The council fractured. Some resigned, some vanished. Some clung harder to power, desperate and loud. But the people were louder. Protests erupted on core worlds, where resistance had once been a whisper. Colonies reconnected and formed coalitions. Trade unions defied quotas. Artists painted rebellion across billboards. Engineers rerouted signals through garbage satellites. Revolution wasn't a gun. It was 1,000 hands moving as one. And at the center of it, Imani Carter stood, no longer a maid, no longer a shadow, but a symbol. In a private declaration weeks later, the newly forming Intergalactic Civil Rights Forum appointed her as the first Terran emissary to the unified sectors. Not as a figurehead, but as a negotiator, a builder, and a voice. "I don't want to lead an empire," she told them in her first statement. "I want to help dismantle the need for one." Carol joined her as her senior advisor. Rav took charge of a new broadcast network dedicated to unfiltered planetary news. Together, they created something that had never existed before, a communications bridge between species built not on profit or control, but shared struggle and healing. As for Varkal Thun, he disappeared from the public eye. Some said he went into exile. Others claimed he worked in the background, dismantling the very systems he helped create. Imani never confirmed it. When asked, she simply said, "He did what needed to be done. That's all any of us can do." In the end, she didn't build a throne. She built a platform. For those who'd never had one, for those who still fought every day just to be seen. And in that final shot of the last report of the cycle, the camera lingered on her silhouette beneath the stars, no longer looking up as an outsider, but standing among them. She wasn't the first to fight. She wouldn't be the last. But she reminded them all, power doesn't belong to those who take it. It belongs to those who rise together. And if you made it to the end of this story and it moved you, subscribe to the channel, join the mission, and keep the signal alive. Another story's already waiting, just like Imani once was.